For day 2, we're going to complete the square to solve quadratic equations. This is the step-by-step process. We're going to collect the variable terms on one side of the equation, constants on the other. Then we're going to divide both sides if we need to, so that the x squared term is 1. Going to complete the square like we just did in this prior part. Factor the variable expression as a perfect square. Take the square root of both sides, and then solve the values of the variable. So, following the steps. First thing, I gather x terms on one side. I like to leave a space. Constants on the other. Then I want to find my third term there. So I take 6 divided by 2 and square it. So this is plus 9. Whatever I do on the left side, I have to do on the right side. Perfect square trinomial. There's the number I'm using. Take the square root of both sides. Remember the plus or minus. And then subtract 6. Remember, when they're integers, you need to do the two solutions. Again, collect the variables on one side, constants on the other. In this case, you take notice, I have a 2 in front of the x squared, so I need to divide this by 2. Leave a space, or factor out a 2. Now I still do the same thing I did before. The b term is 4 divided by 2, square it. But remember, you're actually adding 8 to both sides. Perfect square trinomial. Get rid of this 2 out front by dividing. Take the square root of both sides. Simplify the square root if you can. That's not simplifiable, so we're done. And then move the 2 over by subtracting. You have 2 to try. 2 to try, completing the square. Remember, x terms on one side, numbers on the other. Factor if you need to, if there's a number in front of the x squared. Complete the square. Write your perfect square trinomial as a binomial squared. Square root to both sides, and then solve. Don't forget about simplifying the square root. Oh, I need to backtrack. Sorry. See how far I can go back. I apologize. From here, I forgot to bring the 3 down. My apologies. Now we divide by 3. Now you take the square root. I was slightly off. Okay. It's a lot going on there. The only thing you really can do is just keep practicing and ask me questions. How do you keep an equation balanced when completing the square? You add that b divided by 2 squared to both sides. Remember in our prior lessons we had what we called vertex form. The a quantity x minus h squared plus k. We can complete the square to rewrite any quadratic function in vertex form. So what are we going to do when we want to write a function in vertex form? Well, what I like to do is kind of like to split it into 2 parts. The parentheses part and then the constant part. So I have x squared plus 10x. So now I have 2 terms. I need the third. How do I do the third? Just like before. B divided by 2 squared. So this will be 25 inside here. Okay. Now I don't have 2 sides of an equation this time. I have inside the parentheses, outside the parentheses. Since I added inside the parentheses, I need to subtract outside the parentheses. Now I can write this as a binomial squared. What's my number? 5 from here. Minus, and I combine these two, is 38. Now I have the function in vertex form. What would the vertex be? Remember, it has to be a minus. This would be negative 5, negative 38. Remember, it has to be written in x minus h. Here's your h, k. Okay, trying the next one. In the next one, we need to still do our split like before. Okay, so here's my split. Inside parentheses, outside parentheses. Okay, I can't have a number in front of my x squared, so I need to pull out a factor. Now I'm ready to do the opposite of, or b over 2 divided by 2. So it's going to be plus 4. But remember, I'm multiplying by 2. And I'm adding inside the parentheses, which means I'm subtracting outside. And the 2 times 4 is 8. So now I have 2 This is now going to be whatever that sign is there, right? -2 quantity squared, combine my terms outside. Oops, and this is a g of x. So what is the vertex? X minus h. So there's my h. K. Okay, you have 2 to try. Okay, and why do we add and subtract the same term on the right side of the equation? This is to balance the right side. How do you identify the vertex once the function is written in vertex form? HK, right? So vertex form is that. And we're going to lesson solve the quadratic equation by completing this square. So the first thing we want to do is put our x's on one side. We're moving the 20 over. I'm going to factor out that 2. I take 2 divided by 2, square it. But I have 2 sides of an equal sign this time. So I'm going to actually add 2 to that sign. This is the time that you add when you're looking at 2 sides of an equation, not when we're creating vertex form. So I have 2 plus x plus 1 quantity squared equals 22. Divide by 2 to get rid of that first. Take your square root. Remember that when you take a square root, it's plus or minus. And then subtract 1, and we usually write that first. And this ends 5-4.